The Extraordinary Phenomenon Investigations Council presents Epic Voyages. Come join us as we enter and experience the great mysteries of the world with tonight's host, Kevin Cook.
Good evening. It's good to be with you. This is Kevin Cook, and good to fill in on Epic Voyagers. I've got an excellent guest tonight, my co-host Heidi Hollis. And I want to say hello to Ken Cherry and tell him we'll give him a good show. But you doing okay, Heidi?
I'm surviving. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm a little grumpy tonight, but I'm doing all right. Things are... there's a lot of allergies. Are you having big allergies up there in that Chicago?
Yes. A lot of people are sneezing and coughing and wheezing, including myself. It's been kind of an odd season. Allergies are really, really bad up here.
It's as bad as I remember it because I take what do you call it, Zyrtec, and then I have to augment it with Benadryl to.
Wow.
Golly, to. Well, I know.
How are you conscious? That Benadryl is strong stuff.
Well, I'm I don't know. I'm pretty sturdy fella, but I mean, it's just, I don't know, Heidi. It's just miserable. But I mean, sniffling, and I also have one of those little inhalers I carry every now and then.
Wow.
So I don't know. It's just that way. But anyhow, it's worse than I can remember it in years past. I guess it's hot and dry here in the Fort Worth, Dallas area, and it's dusty. So I didn't think Chicago would actually be a bad place for allergies. I guess it just is. I don't know. But,
yeah, Midwest, they have a lot of pollen stuff and ragweed. Ragweed is like the one that really takes people out. But I don't know if you saw this report that those antibacterial soaps are going to be made to not be allowed as of next year sometime, I believe. And
really? Because I use one of those.
Yeah, one of the reasons is because it increases the likelihood that you'll get allergies or make them worse. I'm like, what?
Well, maybe it has. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do use them a lot, but then, why would that have anything to do with allergies?
I don't know. I thought it was the strangest thing. I'm like, well, heck, that alone explains maybe part of why people's allergies are getting worse.
Well, that's wild. That's wild. Well, now the subject matter tonight is going to be on the Hat Man and some of the other issues you cover in your books.
Yes.
And we might throw in a little something on Marian apparitions. But first, I thought we might do a couple news pieces, like we usually do on our show, the Kevin Cook Show, on Tuesdays. And I don't want to belabor this too much, but Trump supposedly made an insensitive call to some mother of a dead soldier and this and that, and supposedly half a dozen people were listening in on the call in the car, and I don't know, Heidi. This is a bit much even for Trump. I mean, in other words, I'm taking Trump's side in this because he's not the most sensitive individual, no, but I think Trump could sneeze and they'd mischaracterize the sneeze, is what I'm saying.
I hear you. Well, I mean, I guess it was just they were literally on their way to go receive the body of the slain soldier, and it was a sensitive time, I guess, and being told something like that, it's like, what? And he didn't even regard his name, I guess, it just...
Well, yeah, but here's the thing about it, is there's a certain hypocrisy there, because Bush stuck his nose in it, George Bush Jr.'s...
Yeah, Junior got in it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. This lowdown got us in a phony war over there that even Clinton said was ridiculous. And he's responsible for probably 4,000 people dying for no reason. And he's acting holier than thou.
Yeah, It's it's
I
like
mean,
you
there's
had
so
to
much
be there to know what
mystery.
really took place. But several of the family members are vouching this what's said, and honestly, it's kind of the words I could see Trump saying if he said it.
Mm,
Stand by it and be like, "Oops, I'm sorry," instead of saying, that lady's a liar. It's like, just say it. That sounds like your words, Trump. We all say things that we shouldn't say, and
yeah.
just back it up and say, "Oops, I should
Well,
have
I
said this."
guess, I guess so, Heidi. But it's just irksome because, I mean,
Yeah,
I like to say, I'm not trying to defend the man, but I mean, enough is
yeah,
enough on that. And
yeah.
also, I'll get off the Trump issue in a minute, but what I'm saying is, Geraldo Rivera did get back from Puerto Rico, and he, on no uncertain terms, said they're damning the federal efforts unfairly because
I,
this was basically Geraldo, who's got no dog in the hunt. He said that the place was a little nightmare to begin with because there's $70 billion in debt, Heidi, before the storm, and their infrastructure was it's kind of like cardboard shacks practically held together with baling wire. So in other words, it isn't like a modern town like Houston or somewhere in Florida. I mean, this thing you could have a heavy gust could darn near ruin the whole island.
San Juan
And
is
no,
you've been to Puerto Rico, right? San Juan is pretty modern. I'm not I
well,
don't
I haven't been since I was a kid, but I'm just saying that uh, they're talking about the interior of the island, and that's where most of the hardship is in restoring services and all that. So to blame Trump for that is like, come on now. It's like go to a
well,
garbage dump and complain it's not cleaned up.
I believe they said only 9% of the water needs have been met. So the people are literally oh my gosh, go digging into wells from business wastewaters. I just
Well, that's true, but how is
so
that Trump's
bad.
fault? But how is that Trump's fault?
We would not allow Texas to go through that. That's the problem. It's like
Well, Trump has been
equal
in office since
services.
January. Trump has been in office since January. Is he supposed to have solved the water problem in Puerto Rico?
Well,
Come
it
on
became
now.
tainted from the storm. It wasn't a problem beforehand. There's no running water.
Well, I don't see Fort Lauderdale or Fort Myers running out of water or anything like that, and they never were in a water shortage. What I'm saying is, you're talking like third world country conditions, and if it isn't like Dallas, Texas in 2 days, it's Trump's fault. See, that's what I'm saying, and
It's
that's
not
just
third
fair.
world. Puerto Rico's not third world country. Like
It
it's
certainly is in the interior of it. It certainly is.
I didn't think so. But they're American citizens, no, nonetheless. It's like they just want the basics, water, uh, get the electricity back going,
Yes, but this
clear
isn't
the
this isn't
roads.
something this isn't something you can wave a magic wand and it's done in a month and everybody's singing in the sunshine. It's not like that.
No, it's more difficult because of its location. But I mean, my goodness, I think Haiti had a better response when they went through a storm, and
Oh,
it's
I
like
doubt it. I doubt it.
my goodness, it's just I hate to see it. I know several people that live over there, and families can't even reach out because they don't have any phone service to do so, and
Well,
it's like,
see, what's I mean, it's damages happen. I mean,
yeah,
if you live in a poverty-stricken island, things happen. They're not $70 billion in debt because they're uptight and out of sight. I mean, they're not.
but well, their debt doesn't have anything to do with the no
Well, it
water.
does on yeah, well, it does too on infrastructure spending. It does too. But at any rate, I'm just saying that that's an issue that came up.
Yeah.
And on a conspiratorial note, get this. George Soros, the little evil behind the scenes billionaire and all that, he sold MGM stock short. And if you don't know what selling stock short is, you're basically betting it's going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
2 months before that Las Vegas shooting.
Huh.
And MGM is like the casino company up there. I mean, it's you wouldn't want to bet that they would lose because they're always jammed to the rafters with gamblers. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that that was very suspicious. I don't know. It's fueled the conspiratorial fires. It's very suspicious. It may mean nothing in the whole scheme of things, but you got to admit that was very unusual.
Yeah, definitely. Huh.
But at any rate, that's all the non paranormal stuff. But now there was a ghost, or seemingly a ghostly photo taken. It's on the Coast to Coast AM website. It's on their little news pieces. And, I can't speak to the legitimacy of that particular one. They've got several on there actually now.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, Heidi, with all these closed circuit TV cameras all over, I mean, certainly they can't all be like bogus up things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, witnesses and numbers kind of proves the authenticity, doesn't it?
Well, that's what it does to me too. I mean, and also it's not just security cameras. They've had things picked up by even oddball cameras like, hunters will put out cameras in the field just to see, I guess, if any trespassers or odd game or whatever's on those.
Right.
And they've had some really weirdy looking little creatures show up in the background and on some of this, it's not really, you couldn't call it security feed, but let's say game feed or whatever you want to call it. And farm cameras. Now, there were some all kinds of different directions. And Heidi, also, some of this footage they've seen odd anomalies on has been from municipal cameras that nobody's going to finagle anything on.
Right.
And so, I mean, Heidi, I guess, you don't want to believe just everything, but I mean, you have to be kind of a deadhead not to believe they're not picking up stuff.
Right. Oh, I hear you. Oh, that's wild. I think I really dig those types of video footage that, just so happens to be like a trail cam or something, and it's like,
yeah, trail cam, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what on earth was that? So yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Well, it is, and I guess from witnesses I've talked to, like we mentioned on our show one night, there's a hotel in Fort Worth called the Hotel Texas. Mm-hmm. And it dates way back. See, Fort Worth has one little historical stockyards district where, I guess, way back to antiquity, they drive the herds into Fort Worth to sell the cattle and so forth, so on. And then the cowboys would go to like an entertainment district and drink and carry on and all this. And this Hotel Texas is a long-standing institution there. I mean, it dates back. Oh, Heidi, this 1840s or 50s or something, way back. Okay.
Yeah.
And for those who've never heard about this, I talked to this lady who's a very good Christian gal. I mean, let's put it this way. There's not many people that are full of baloney that work two jobs. She worked at the Six Flags Texas as a marketing person, and then she worked 10 years as the night manager at this Hotel Texas. And she's a big Christian, all that stuff. I mean, she didn't write any books, and she wasn't trying to beef up attendance at the hotel because it was haunted. I mean, I asked her, because I'd heard these rumors, and she said, Kevin, without question, without fail, it's haunted.
Oh, wow.
Now, I didn't ever ask her about closed-circuit TV cameras at the time, because about 12 years ago, I talked to her, but the maids would make up a room, and then they'd lock it up, and then, of course, you wouldn't mess with it until they was re-rented, because the maids aren't going to want to mess up their own work. But you'd go back and stuff would be thrown all over the room, and water running or something. I mean, just little pranky kind of things.
That had to be absolutely frustrating as a worker there. It's like,
the maids aren't going to want to ruin their own job, right? Exactly. Right. And then as a sidekicker, this woman said that after all those years of working there, what they would do is they'd come back and the guests would see shadowy figures of cowboys in the hallway, like a ghostly figure, if you will.
Wow.
Seemingly with period dress and all that. And, obviously the guests aren't going to say that to get some money off the room rent or something. I mean, it's just part and parcel of it is what I'm saying.
Right.
And that's one of thousands of places that you could say the same thing about. I guess, Heidi, it's kind of like that place up your way in Chicago. What is the white lady hitchhiker, or lady in white hitchhiker, or whatever it is near that cemetery?
Bachelor's Grove, I believe, cemetery.
That sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah.
But how long is that? That's been going on for what, forever? 60, 70 years?
Yeah, something like that. And what's fascinating to me, I'd watched some paranormal show where they spoke of the lady in white hauntings scattered all over the country. And
oh,
it's
yeah,
kind
there's
of
one down here, yeah.
yeah, kind of a similar story attached to them too. Lady died on her wedding night, or just before her wedding, she killed herself, or she lost her love. And yeah, it's like similar stories all over the place. And it's like,
oh, gee,
what a strange theme. And to be so consistent and to have so many witnesses by so many different outlets and locations. That is the mystery.
Must be a lot of bad wedding, a lot of bad wedding feedback.
Yeah.
Well, now there was something funny, and I know I've been married twice, of course, but what I'm saying is there was a real funny, one of the little action movie or TV series I saw recently. They were talking to a cop series. They were talking to some guy, and he says, "Yeah, half the marriages don't work out, and the other half people are miserable." But I mean, that about sums it up.
Wow.
So
sad but true.
It is. Well, they have one here in Dallas. It's called the Lady of White Rock Lake or something, and she's dressed in white as well. And I don't know whether she jumped in the lake committing suicide, something along those lines from a negative marital experience. But it's always some kind of white wearing woman or something like that.
Yeah, why can't she be wearing jeans and a plaid shirt or something?
Yeah, exactly, something, anything. But
it's got to be a flowing
evening dress
gown.
or something. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but I mean, this is so well reputed that it's like if you mention it to one of the local residents, it's a fairly nice little neighborhood of Dallas, fairly affluent.
Yeah.
And the lake isn't big, but it's big enough. And they say, yeah, it's as obvious that's true as, birds in the sky. I mean, it just is.
Right.
So, oh no, Heidi. But I guess I don't mean to dwell on that too much, but I guess it's just odd because it came up today on that news piece on Coast and some others recently. And I guess I was thinking about it, reflecting on it. I was thinking, well, how could anybody not believe in ghosts with all the evidence, not just a camera thing, but just the visual sightings over all those many years? Not everybody's a fruitcake. I've even seen a ghost. And,
right.
It took me by surprise. And I was staying in an apartment complex, and there's a lot of people had died in that little apartment complex, I guess. And it wasn't really scary. It was just like a little dumpy Casper the Ghost looking ghost. But my business partner was there. He saw it at the same time. And
no denying it then.
No, it wasn't. And it just was visible for maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 seconds, long enough for you to see it.
Wow.
And we looked at it analytically. There was no way it was a projection from anything or a shadow or nothing, because it didn't look like a shadow. It looked like it had a very dark charcoal gray outline, and in the inside it was the misty kind of wispy, smoky kind of look. But it had an outline, is what I'm saying, and I've never seen.
That's very strange. I've never heard of such a thing.
Well, it happened. I mean, it matter of fact, I think what happened was, because he was staying with me for a while because he's got divorced, and I let him flop there for a while. And what happened was it was fooling with things on his little dresser. And, like he's one of these nutcases. It's really like a obsessive compulsive person that always puts their stuff lined up in the same normal contour,
Yeah.
And it would move itself around on the dresser, And obviously I wouldn't do it. I'm not going to mess with it. What would I care about his little paranoid, nutty neuroses? But I mean, in other words, stuff would move around. It obviously had to do with some outside force. And it wasn't because the Air Force jets were going over near the base. It wasn't that. I mean, that wasn't going over that powerfully. So in other words, it was doing the moving of the object thing. And then finally it showed itself. And that was kind of like its coup de grace, because after that, nothing ever moved and nothing was ever seen in there again.
Wow. Pretty wild.
So I guess I had the only place where a ghost was too bored to haunt anymore.
Yeah.
Went over for greener pastures. But that did happen, and I can attest to that. I'm a pretty good witness. So anyway, but now you've written lots of books. I mean, you're just a glutton for punishment in the book department. How
Okay.
many have you written altogether?
I have 6 published, and I have about 5 waiting to be published.
5?
Yeah,
Great Scott, Heidi.
I know.
Uh, that's just a lot of work. How do you find time to do it all? The editing and all that awful stuff?
Yeah, it's odd, but it's something that just kind of burns in me to get done, and I don't
Okay.
isolate myself as I once did. I go and I go to like a Starbucks or a Barnes and Noble
Oh, okay.
and write and draw there or whatever. So
Oh,
yeah,
neat.
it's kind of it. I think the most beautiful thing is a blank sheet of paper. I just love it, or a blank screen, just to be able to type whatever the
Really?
heck I want. Yeah, or to draw whatever I want. It's fun. It's exciting, and to know that I'm able to do it too. It's like I don't have
Well, no,
ouch.
that's good, of course.
Yeah,
Well, I wrote
fun.
a book, Marian Apparitions Are Real, but that was such an onerous thing, and I did it because I felt I was meant to do it. But, oh, Heidi, if I had a choice between doing that or working in a Pennsylvania coal mine, I would take the coal mine and be happy to take it instead of writing. I feel that strongly about it. I mean, not that I'm a bad writer, but it just is onerous.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but
Editing,
I
I
guess
guess,
that's
is the
why.
worst. Yeah, editing's the worst, I think.
Well, now the editing was not exactly. Yes, I would have to say that would be the researching wasn't that bad. I've always kind of liked researching stuff, but
See, that part I
but
don't like.
oh well, boy, we could collaborate then. but
Yeah.
but no, I didn't mind the researching, but the editing was just unpleasant. And but I have to take my hat off to you to actually have produced 6 books with 5 more in the wings. And
Yeah. Oh,
what
in
is that?
fact, I'm gonna have one coming out pretty soon. I was debating if I should let it come out in January since we're so close to the end of the year, but sometimes
Yeah.
it looks like things will line up well enough for it to be released in November, late November or early December. So I just have a lot of things
Oh,
to pull together. I got sidetracked with
well,
it just seems
what's the subject matter of that book?
this is the book I've been talking about for a while to get out, and it's called The Other F Word, and it's on the topic of faith
Oh,
because
okay.
I get a lot of people that write me about demonic stuff coming into their
Oh,
home and what
yeah,
do they
yeah.
do, and oh, but I'm not into that religious thing. And like, well, then you might
Uh-huh.
as well throw a shoe or a book at it, because if you don't have faith behind you, how are you going to fight something that can walk through your wall and
Oh,
it's evil,
exactly. It's not like you could
you
shoot
and
it or
it's
something, right?
yeah, and
Exactly.
it's like
Yeah.
you're looking into the eyes of something that is evil.
Right.
You have an inkling where its source comes from. That right
Yeah.
there should give you the faith of more mustard seeds than you can muster to know
Right.
that there's an opposite and opposing force to that, or yet at least better hope so. So,
Right. Right.
yeah. So
Well, I
I
agree
just
with that. I'm in agreement with that. Of course, I've experienced the negative side of it too, and uh, well, without intentionally having it. I mean, I was never dabbled in negative things like black masses or anything, but I just did it via uh, martial arts Kujikuri exercises. I mean, I was no more thinking about anything negative than baseball. but what I'm saying is, yeah, people that mess with stuff like this Ouija board thing and some of this meditational aspects, even if it seems benign, it isn't. It isn't.
right,
And
yeah. So I thought it'd be
happily,
wise to
yeah,
put a book together that would wake people up to their faith and how to get it, because people just doubt their faith too much, or they don't know if it's right,
yeah,
or how do you test that, and it's like, well, you know what, the only way that you can figure that out is by analyzing a few things, and I thought I would have fun with the topic, so I drew comics, put some jokes in, but also got down to the nitty gritty with that book, and trying to
yeah,
help people decipher for themselves where they stand with their faith, because it's a serious topic, but it should be a fun
right,
topic too, because too many people get
yeah,
freaked out and are terrified that they're going to do something wrong when it comes to faith. It's like, the one area in our lives we're as flawed as can be as human beings, and the
right,
one area in our lives that we are not supposed to be flawed in is our faith in God. And it's like, hold
yeah,
on. God knew what the heck he was doing when he made us. He knew we were a hot mess. He knew we would be flawed in the way that we seek our faith, do our faith, and go about our faith. So I'm trying to encourage people to give themselves a break, rewind, take another step in this direction or that one, and get right with it to where they feel comfortable instead of being so darn hard on themselves. So the other F word, and the subtitle is How to Find Faith and Laugh at Yourself at the Same Time, because it's important. It really is. And I don't see how people could go through life just winging it. They need to figure it out.
Well, I know what you're saying. I think I've been fortunate in that I've had some very powerful religious experiences, which obviously came from sources outside me. I mean, so demonstrative that, maybe we'll talk about it later, but so demonstrative that you'd have to be a nitwit to not believe it was from the benign side of things. And I've been fortunate because most people don't have that. Not dramatic, and you've had those kind of things too, not dramatic, clear-cut, smack you in the face with a tuna kind of experiences. And,
all right.
And that is hard. Now, I can say I've had that, and you've had it, and it's appreciated. Where the divine, I've actually experienced it, and that's something a lot of people haven't been able to say. And
I feel I cheated in my faith, and I always say that because I was weak in it. I questioned things or didn't dive all into it either, and then I had these Jesus encounters, which I wrote about in my book called Jesus is No Joke. Highest rated book I've got out there. 90 reviews with 4.5 stars on Amazon. It was #1 for 8 months in near-death experience category. And it's like, I really needed to, figure out where I stood in my faith. Little did I know how important it was, this paranormal person looking into this stuff. But it was important. And, so I think that, people need to come full circle, as I needed to, in order to even speak on the paranormal.
Well, I agree with that. Like I say, the trouble is, of course, I don't want to beat the drum too strong for the Catholic Church, but, I had some religious experiences early on, but as a child, but it was only later in life when I was pulled practically by the hair into the Catholic Church that I experienced so many things. And I'm not saying you have to be a Catholic, obviously, like you're not, but I mean, to experience them, but it went hand in hand with my experience. And I was thankful I did have it. But, we'll talk about that later, perhaps. But no, I feel for people who have not been exposed to a demonstrative, take it to the bank religious experience that's a life-changing thing to build your faith around. In other words, without having anything, it can seem pretty dry.
Right.
And I do appreciate that, and I appreciate what I've experienced. But, oh, boy. The average person has got to pretty well make it, on faith alone, without something to buoy it up, and that is hard. And God, obviously, look at all the miracles they had in the Bible. They had those miracles for a reason, to shake people by the shoulders and say, look, you understand this? This is not normal operations here, like Jesus with the loaves and the fishes. I mean, things did happen here, right?
Oh,
and, and those were always reason to raise people from the dead, for goodness sakes. At any rate, we should be coming to our first break right now. Let's take it, and we'll be right back.
3, 2, go.
Well, Heidi, I don't know. I guess, like I say, some people just have to make it on dry faith. But see, that was the trouble in the Episcopal Church. There was never any fire and lightning like there is in the Catholic Church or the Baptist Church or some other churches. It's, I'm not saying there aren't good Episcopalians out there, but let's put it this way. I never heard of the things outside of in the Episcopal Church that have occurred that I've experienced in the Catholic Church, and they experience every day. It's just, I would like to write a book similar to what the topical issues you write on about Eucharistic miracles and things. Stuff that is so tied together with science that you'd have to be a nitwit to not realize it's true. Like we had a show on our on the Kevin Cook show on Inception Radio about Eucharistic miracles, where Heidi, I'm talking about stuff that's been submitted to 200 different doctors,
Yeah.
And where elements of the host that's in the mass are bleeding, and there's no way that was fabricated. I mean, they've had it in storage, some of it for a couple hundred years, and it shows to be living tissue and so forth and so on, cardiac tissue with that. And I mean, you can't deny it. I mean, it's just like, it's right there. It's just like, it's like your truck when you get into it in the morning, it's there, right? And that's pretty good stuff. It really is.
I love this this story of Jesus having shown his wounds on his hands and saying, blessed are those who believe and have not seen me. So,
yes,
miracles are cool and all, but I find that sometimes people look for these things in order to increase their faith. And that's where I have a bit of a problem, because it's like you should be able to be fine without looking, searching, certifying.
I know
so
what you're
like,
saying. Blessed are those who haven't seen and believe. Yeah, I understand,
yes.
but I guess what it is, though, Heidi, is that the regular day-to-day circumstances are so...
New Yorkers know a good deal when they see one, like getting the best unlimited, hassle-free. Switch to Verizon Unlimited and get 4 lines for $40 per line per month with unlimited talk, text, mobile hotspot, and 4G LTE data. The deal you want? Easy as can be on New York's #1 network as awarded by RootMetrics. Unlimited for all. Now $40 per month. A value for a city like no other.
Suffocating. Job issues, money issues, marital issues, blah, 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 health issues, whatever. That it's like people are just bombarded with the cares of the world. And understandably, things are not, in spite of all the sass, things are not good economically. People don't make near the money for their jobs that they used to, allowing for inflation. And, that's a difficulty factor in their regular lives. And 1 out of 2 marriages bites the dust. So, I mean, that's another thing that keeps people's lives fomented up. So, I mean, there's so many things to distract you from God and godly issues that I can understand that there's problems. And I do feel very thankful for your experiences and for mine and other people's, that they don't have to guess. They don't have to guess.
Right. And like I mentioned earlier, I feel like I've cheated a bit in my faith level, because, I mean, it's kind of hard to deny your own eyeballs, though some people are really good at doing that. It's just like when they see a UFO and they think, my eyes are playing tricks on me. And it's like, for myself, it's very much like, I got shook from the inside out. I knew what it was I had experienced, and I knew who I'd experienced. And, Jesus Christ. And for me, having been a huge skeptic, I was such a skeptic. I wrote about it in my first book, The Secret War, how people who would say that, Jesus is in my bowl of soup or a tree trunk. And I'm like, my goodness, I thought it was so ridiculous that I'd actually criticized it in my book, saying, this is, if Jesus were around, I think I would have seen him by now. People are seeing him in the clouds. What is this? So
they call that matrixing.
I was a skeptic of it. So then when I had the experience that I did in seeing him, I was very much moved. And for me be as moved as I was, I had to go and rewrite that chapter, though I left parts of my skepticism in there and the change and why the change happened, because just before I put out The Secret War book is when I'd had my Jesus encounters. And it was life-changing. And for people who look at me as the shadow people, hat man, paranormal person, and I'm like, I would not be able to do any of this had I not had the Jesus encounter experiences. And I rely upon those experiences, because one of the things that Jesus had said to me, and it's not like he had a whole ton of words for me either. It wasn't like, I don't know how some people have had encounters with him that have like chapters to write of his quotes.
Like St.
He didn't say, it's like he didn't have a ton to say to me, but what he did say was really moving. And he told me not to worry what others thought, that know that he would be there to give me the word. So every time I go to do a show, every time I go to do anything in regards to these topics, because I was painfully shy, would you believe it, that I gave up grades in college and would not do presentations. So every time I would go up and do something, I'm like, Jesus, you promised me you'd give me the words, and now I'm holding you to it, because every time it's not, there's no other reason that I do what I do, because it has to do only for the purpose that he asked me to. He asked me to finish writing my book, The Secret War, and not to worry what others spoke of it. So I finished it, and got to follow your heart and gut on these things, and also if Jesus asks you to do a favor, not to be shy about it.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But I don't know. I guess I feel then very thankful that because I've mentioned in other shows we've done before on our regular Kevin Cook show about how I've had these experiences in the Catholic Church, and I tell my priest about it, and I say, "What's up with this?" And basically the thrust of it is it's very frequent that people have them. It's not like a blue moon thing. It's a regularized basis, and it makes it certainly more comfortable. I mean, your faith is reassured all the time. And like I said, about the Eucharistic miracle thing, you go there and visit these places where they've got them stored and stare at it and read the medical reports and all that. It just makes it a little easier going, I guess. But
yeah.
So you're going to put this book out, this next one out.
I'm aiming for maybe in about 3 weeks or so. I'm trying to get some things lined up, and I got distracted with someone who wanted to help put the book out, and then had some issues going on, and help promote the book, I should say. And
right.
Yeah, so it just got delayed with that dilly-dallying, and I'm just like, look, people need this now. And it's just like when people tell me, oh gosh, I hope the world ends soon, and things are so bad. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, think about it. If the world ended soon, look at how many people we would lose, because there are so many lost souls out there who've not only lost their faith, they lost their humanity. So it's like, it's a matter of, getting these people to wake up and look to the brighter side and the lighter side, and to God, for crying out loud, and not being shy about saying, guess what? I believe in God. Guess what? I'm Christian. It's like this big taboo now to say that. And I remember a time being in the paranormal and the UFO stuff, and putting out the books that I did. And so many people writing me saying, like, they didn't think they were allowed to believe UFOs existed and to keep their faith. I'm like, what? Like it was somehow they were worshiping something demonic.
I've heard of
That's
that.
so
I have heard
weird.
of that.
So, and
Well,
I'm like,
there's
no, it's okay. It's okay. It's just like you could pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time. It's okay if you can.
Well,
people
is
can do that.
There is a certain tendency in some evangelical communities to view UFOs as being of demonic origin. I've heard that before.
I think it goes according to what you think and how you treat it. It's not about bowing down and get on your hands and knees to worship aliens. It's acknowledging there may be life out there. Even the Vatican has acknowledged there may be brothers and sisters out there governed by the same God. And it's like, it's okay, everybody. It's like acknowledging there may be breeds of dogs out there you don't know.
Sure,
it's like...
even in the Bible, Jesus said that in my Father's house are many mansions, and I go to prepare a place for you. But he alluded to already different aspects or dimensions or whatever you want to call it already existing, and I go to prepare a place for you, and talking about humankind. Right. So there is diversity is what I'm saying, yes. And even in the Bible, there was a group that was referred to as watchers. And they weren't angels per se, and they weren't demons, but they were watchers, and somehow there was biblical warnings about not messing with them or something like that. But they weren't characterized as demons per se, just watchers of some bleed over entities or whatever. So I mean, this has been alluded to in the Bible before, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what gets jumbled in people's perception sometimes in regards to the paranormal and UFOs and whatnot. And I think because people sometimes wonder why something would look their way, paranormal or otherwise, that they may have darker ties, and so they worry about that.
Very possibly it could, but I'm just saying that, like, I have to admit that even I wonder about the ghostly thing. But the Bible spoke of ghosts. Even Jesus spoke of ghosts. Now, where they fit in the hierarchy of things, I don't know. I mean, there's been 2,000 cases where old grandpa comes back and in a dream tells his grandson, "It's okay, Louis, I'm all right," or whatever. And I mean, this is there's a fellow that I know in business who's a pretty sharp old guy, and his older brother died, and he had a very vivid dream that this guy came and visited him, said, "I just want you to know I'm all right," and like that. And this guy,
those I called spirits. I don't call them ghosts. Like, ghosts are those things that linger around and knock stuff over. But a spirit come by and say, "Hey, honey, I'm all right. Don't worry about me." That's
that kind of thing. Yeah, that's what it was. That sort of thing.
Yeah, that's not somebody that was condemned to roam the earth knocking on walls,
knock vases over or something. Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate that, but there's been untold stories of that kind, and I experienced one like it. I guess I could mention now that one in church, actually, that was kind of like that. Remember the one I spoke of about when I was in Mass and I started feeling a grieving in the pit of my stomach? Remember that one?
I don't know. Sorry.
Well, what it was, it's okay. What it was this was about a little shy of a year ago, close to a year ago. I was going through Mass in the normal way, and it was about halfway done, and I started feeling a real grieving feeling in the pit of my stomach, but for a guy that was like a second father to me. And this was strange because, I'm not overly emotional person, and, the guy had been dead for 25 years. It wasn't like, it was an immediate shocking thing. And this was like, Heidi, like you just got a phone call and your sister was in a car wreck or something, right? I mean, that kind of imminent, powerful punch in the stomach kind of feeling, right?
Mm.
And I thought, this is strange because it ain't like me. And okay, what happened is I just kind of scratched my head about it, and then I went out to the parking lot, which has probably 1,000 cars in it, and parked right next to me in Keller, Texas, was a car from Atlanta, Georgia, where the business was. I mean, and the chances of those two things in an exact happening are about zero, at like 1 in a trillion or something. And I told the priest about it. He said, "Kevin, if you think that was a coincidence, you're pretty naive." And what it was kind of like a little ghostly visitation, kind of, and in a reassuring way. And some guy I cared about, like a second father kind of guy. And there was no way that anyone with any wit of intelligence about them would not see that was a contrived and positive thing. And it was reassuring. I've experienced things like that, similar things, more religious-oriented things. But I mean, I guess that was a good spiritual contact thing, And
right. More spiritual.
It buoyed up my... Yeah, and all my stuff happens, by the way, almost all of it in the Catholic Church. I mean, I don't, go chasing down ghosts in bars or motels or anything.
Well, luckily, those things can happen outside of the church, too. A lot of people do.
Oh, no, I'm not saying they can't, but I mean, mine, for some reason, I guess this knucklehead couldn't handle it if it wasn't in the church, so we'll just keep him confined to that. But
right.
I don't know, Heidi. I don't know. But the faith thing, I understand that the faith thing is an issue, and it's just so hard. And, I have a battle all the time. Like, my business partner will be, I drive around doing sales calls, and, he knows I'm a big Christian and all that, and he'd say, why does God allow this? Why does God allow that? And I frankly, a lot of times, I don't have an answer.
Well, who said it's God, though?
The idea being is
there's this thing called free will, and there's something called
evil now there is
that's been allowed to roam the earth, and there's dark angels that are fallen angels doing whatever they want, and But
Well, that's true too.
that's why I thought it was wise to tackle the topic of faith in the manner that I did, because I think people are way too hard on themselves and need
Yeah.
to start taking it a little bit easier on themselves, and keeping an open mind to this crazy world that we live in. That there are different levels of dimensions going on here. I mean, we
Yeah, there
believe in
are.
the Holy Spirit, for crying out loud. What is the Holy
Well, yeah.
Spirit? You can't poke your finger in its eye. So what are we talking about? God is everywhere. Well, that's another kind of level of something too. And it's like, and Jesus ascended. Well, where'd he go? So there's a lot of different levels of understanding that I think that people need to, take it all in. There's a lot going on this planet that we can't definitely define.
Yes.
But
yes, I know
there is a way to understand and to be open and to observe it and to filter it into your life without freaking out too much, and acknowledging UFOs may be out there, and ghosts and spirits and angels, God, all of it, demons, and it's okay. It's okay if it's a little confusing at first, but I think as you take baby steps, understand one element, move to the next element, see how the two interrelate and work together, it just pulls together and it starts to make more sense. For myself, I don't feel clouded in my thoughts on what it is that I've experienced. I don't feel confused, and I think things happen in the order that they did. I don't know if you want to go into my stuff yet. If we're going to keep back and forthing, but I grew up in a haunted house, and so I knew other realities existed, and something that was very scary was happening. My family and we were experiencing something that we knew wasn't typical. And, we did speak of it to our school friends and everything. And we're very relieved and happy when we moved to a brand new house that my parents built so they wouldn't have to deal with a haunting any longer. And from then on, I lived out in what was country enough for me. It was on the outskirts of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And didn't have many street lights or anything, and there was a couple farms around the area, and neighbors had horses that would come over every once in a while. It was like it was a little country, and I would walk it to where I needed to go, and I would see strange lights in the sky, and I'm like, hold on, and it's like they would do 90-degree angle turns and kind of get too bright, come a little lower, go back up, and I'm like, I'm seeing something that's really out of the ordinary. And then as a I don't know how old I was. I think it was about 12, 13. I started having out-of-body experiences. And
oh, really? You had those too?
Oh my goodness! One that really floored me, because this is really wild. So the first one that I recall, and I shared a room with my younger sister. So I had to be about 12 or something. And I woke up because I felt something cold on my cheek and rough. And I'm like, ooh, gosh, what is that? And I go to pull my head up to look, and it was the ceiling.
The ceiling? Oh, okay.
I'm like, what's going on here? I looked down and see my body, and boom, I went back into it with a smack. I'm like, what on earth? And I don't know how much later I had another out-of-body experience, and I remember going around the neighborhood, and the place where nearby where I lived, it was a model home area. So they're brand new empty houses. People would come and look at them and decide if they wanted to build that house somewhere. So it was interesting. Me and my sister go and explore them. It was fun. But so the area was really, starting to build up a little bit here and there. And I remember going low by the trees and feeling the cool leaves and stuff. And this one time I went a little bit further out, and I saw these two towers being built. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I don't know those to be there. What is that? And, I got confirmation. I think it was the following week when my parents drove past there, and sure enough, two towers were being built. And I was like, that really happened. That, that's when it really hit me.
Sure, yeah.
But what really, really hit me, this is a crazy one. This is just beyond. So my sister and I and neighbor kids were playing in our backyard, and we had this linoleum siding or aluminum siding, I'm sorry, on the side of the house. And as we're walking by and talking, me and my sister, and I look up, and on the side, like right outside of our bedroom window, and it was kind of a matte finish to this aluminum siding, but right on the outside were sweaty footprints.
Oh my
Footprints going straight up the side of the house. And
Wow.
all the way to the roof. Now, it was a ranch style house, so it's one story. And we were looking at it, and I'm like, what the? You know, it's the house, the sun had to hit it just right. And and it just glistened. And I'm like, whose footprints? And I said, oh my gosh, I had that out of body dream, you know, and I took my shoe off and I put my foot to it. I'm like, oh, it was my freaking foot. And we go to get my dad, and we're like, you know, Dad, look at this. And he comes out, and he's like, you girls are playing a joke. I mean, come on.
Sure.
Like, Dad, how on earth could we do that? Get our feet, go all the way up to this. I mean,
how did you pull that prank off?
Right.
Yeah.
But I remember being absolutely stunned and looking and knowing, like, oh my gosh, I did this. How? You know, I just didn't know how to fit it in and figure it out. It was just so bizarre. But so that started my life into the paranormal. And then, you know, I'm like, what is this? Everywhere I move, every place I go, paranormal things would be happening, or I would be having these odd premonition-like dreams, and it wasn't something I associated with being a wonderful, fun thing. I was terrorized as a kid with the haunting, and the UFO lights would scare me walking alone late at night for miles in the dark, you know, and I'm like, oh no, you know, what are those lights zipping around for? And so it wasn't something I enjoyed. And then I moved into a dormitory when I went off to college, and wouldn't you know it, paranormal stuff. You'll get a kick out of this story.
It followed you there too, or it followed you there
gosh,
as well,
just strangeness, and this is probably the most prominent ones, and they kind of they tie in together. So my suite mate and I were racing to the elevators because we lived on the 23rd floor. And we had big dormitories. They were huge, and they had 3 towers, and we're in the tallest one. And 23rd floor, you did not want to do those stairs, and it would take forever for the elevators to come back. So we're running, and we're like, hold the elevator. We're running, and the doors popped up open just as they were closing, and we're like getting on to thank the person on the elevator, and we get on, and there's nobody there. And we're really quiet. And we felt like a presence there. Really quiet. We didn't say a word till we got to the 23rd floor. We got off, and we're both like, did you see the girl that was on? I'm like, yes, I saw the girl. I'm like, oh my gosh. And we both just.
What, a ghostly figure of a girl you're saying? Or?
Oh, she was solid. She had blue jeans and a leather bomber jacket. She was blonde and pretty. And we're just like, oh my gosh, I saw her too. And we're both like, what was that? Now,
so where did you see this figure? Was it in the elevator itself, or
it was in the elevator? She opened the door.
Opened the door for you. Oh, okay. I got you.
She opened the elevator doors for us, and we're just like, what the heck? So now this gets even creepier. Maybe 2 weeks later, I had a roommate. So the suite is 4 rooms, or no, 3 rooms, and there were 2 single rooms, and there was a double room. I had a double room with my best friend, and. This one night, I wake up to her asking me, who are you talking to, Heidi? And I'm like, I find myself, and now my bed is like at a bunk bed height, okay? And I am standing there pointing out the window saying, don't do it. And I'm talking to the blonde girl in the bomber jacket. And,
the same girl, okay.
Same girl, sweet mates hear all the commotion. It's like 2, 3 in the morning. They're like, what's going on? I'm like, I was telling this girl not to jump. Sure enough, we found out later a girl had jumped from our floor. So craziness.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that was
go sleep.
Now when she opened the elevator door for you, was she like a occupant of the car, or I mean?
She opened up the elevator to our floor, of course. We're going to the 23rd
Yeah,
floor, but
right,
um,
right.
I mean, they knew that somebody had jumped from either the 23rd or 24th floor, and
Well, I
no
guess what I'm
one.
saying is when you walked into the elevator, was she
She was
standing there? Then you
she was standing
talking
there
to her?
like a regular person,
Oh,
and
just a regular
you're like,
passenger or
oh,
something.
and we
Yeah.
got on to like say thank you for opening the door, and boom, there's nobody there.
Oh, I got you. She just disappeared. Yeah, I got
Yeah, she
you.
had just totally disappeared. And, we get off and we're both confirming who we saw, what we saw. And then for 2 weeks later, or whatever the time was, to be waking up talking to this girl. I'm standing there. I came down off
Wow.
my bunk bed, standing there pointing at the window, telling her, don't do it. Don't jump.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then we
Wow.
confirmed later that a girl had jumped from the window. And we didn't know
Right.
which room. And I'm like, I bet I could tell you which one.
Yeah. Good
Unfortunately,
Lord. That
it was
is
mine.
wild. That is wild. Well,
Yes.
that's similar. I mean, I don't know that I guess it's similar to the story about the one we mentioned earlier when we first started the show about the cemetery up your way where the woman's asking for a hitchhike to the cemetery or whatever it is. And I mean, keep
Right.
recycling itself all over again. I don't
Right.
know. I mean, religiously, I can't even imagine what that's all about. But
Right.
I guess
Right.
it happens all the time because whatever the local thing is in Dallas, the Lady of White Rock Lake, I don't know. I guess she had a bad marital encounter and drowned herself or something, but it keeps recycling all the time.
Right.
It's just it is. Now, one thing about it, I'm thankful for the religious experiences I've had, but it is a weird world. It is so much weirder than my scientist parents, businessmen dash scientist types, uh, pictured it as or described it as being. It's totally different. I mean, it really is. But
Yeah.
well, now Heidi, we're just about at our second break. I guess we could take that for a minute, and we'll be right back.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Well, it's good to be back with Heidi. And Heidi, that was pretty wild about the girl in the elevator. And
Oh my gosh.
that's that really is something.
It's been
I
a
don't know.
paranormal life.
I guess it really has. For the longest time, mine wasn't, but it has turned that way. But so what happened after during the college? Were there more experiences?
Oh goodness. The UFO phenomena got to be more of a interesting aspect while I was in college. I'd
Oh, it
seen,
did?
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'd seen some wild UFOs, including a massive one downtown Milwaukee. And I was coming home from one of the clubs me and my friend was going to, and I was never a drinker. And she, of course, she's driving, and so she
Oh,
hadn't drank either. And I saw this bright light to the right of us, and I'm like, for people from Wisconsin or in Milwaukee, it was an old Fond du Lac exit that they took down that was close to downtown, exiting onto the east side of Milwaukee. And and I'm telling my friend, I'm like, gosh, what is that bright light? And she looks over past me, and she's like, oh, I don't know, but isn't that the moon? And I'm like, if it's the moon, it's going to land on us. And
huh.
next thing I know,
I'm done.
this thing comes right over the top of us.
Really?
And it was absolutely amazing. I had never seen or even heard of a UFO like this at the time. Now I've heard of some, but the entire body of this thing glowed an orangish reddish color, and it almost seemed alive. The edges were kind of diffuse, and it was kind of oblong and just massive. It took up the entire sky. I would say 3 football fields in length, just humongous. I couldn't see past it. And my friend, she's absolutely freaking out. And she's like, I don't see this. I don't see this. I'm like, oh, and she's all over the road. I'm like, I said, you better open your eyes because you're going to kill us. And she looks back up. She's like, what is it? What is it? And the thing goes back up into the night sky. And my friend's like, you will never hear me speak of this ever. and the thing came back down out of the sky.
Oh, really?
It did. And she's like, almost as if in response to her. And then in an instant, it took off towards Lake Michigan. It was just gone. And I'm like, there is no denying this thing. This thing was huge. And just don't, how do you categorize that? So things had gotten to be where I'd seen odd UFOs and things like that. And I'd also experienced something, and this goes into the topic of shadow people. I was living down in Iowa for a brief amount of time in between my college years, and I was trying to learn about the newspaper business, and I was staying at my friend's house down there in her family's home, and I stayed in they had like this attic bedroom, which just spells out a nightmare to begin with. But so during the broad daylight hours, we needed to go to her uncle's house. And so we were both walking along, and we walked through this park that was behind a school. And I saw something in my peripheral vision to my right, and I thought I saw something shadowy move from a bush to a tree. And I'm like, what the heck? And my friend, she always kind of walked faster than me, and I'm like, what did I just see? And I keep walking, and I see this thing again and again and again the entire time that we're walking. And it was just this shadowy mass hopping from a tree to a bush and just ducking behind things. And I got a good look at this thing.
Kind of like shadowing you, if you will.
Yeah, truly. And as we're walking along, I am getting more and more freaked out. And this is broad daylight. And we get to her uncle's house.
Wow.
And then we had to bring something to him. And we turn around to come back to her home, only for this thing to follow us all the way back. Now, by the time we reached her home, I was just beside myself. I'm like, look.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and/or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
I don't know what I just saw, but I saw this, and I grabbed a piece of paper, and I drew what I call the head and shoulders shadow. Now, this thing is kind of looks like a hulky, bulky man with his head directly connected to his shoulders, and with no discernible legs. And looking at this thing, I mean, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my friend is gonna laugh her head off when she sees my drawing, and I hand it to her and prepare for the worst for her laughter. She barely looks at it. She goes, oh, that thing. I'm like, what?
Oh, just clear as crystal to her, huh?
Yeah, she goes, I don't know what that is, but it's been following me since I was a kid. And then she goes, hey, Dad, look, Heidi saw him too. Dad comes over. Well, let me have a look. And he goes, oh, is he back? I'm like, what is going on here? I've just been terrified by this thing. And they're very nonchalant, and they go on to talk about
matter of fact about it.
Yeah, they go on to talk about how this thing, she would scream in the middle of the night, her dad would come running, and he would see it as well, and just grab her and bring her out of the room. And I was like, this is just crazy. So soon after that, I had to get something from my attic bedroom. And when you go up the stairs, this is big, black, empty center room. And I go and I walk through that big black center room, and it's still broad daylight out. There was no windows in that center room. But in my room, there were low windows that had a lot of sunshine still coming in. So it lit up well enough. And I go in there, grab what I needed off my bed. I turn around to leave, and that darn thing was standing there, blocking my exit out of the room. And probably 10 feet tall, Kevin. Just
10 feet tall. Wow.
Huge. And I'm looking at this thing, and I mean, you talk about every element of the nightmare coming to life, and you being alone, witnessing this, and I'm like, what you know, so many thoughts go through your head, and it's like, I should run. Nope, I should swing at it. Nope. And I just knew not to do any of those things, and to take a deep breath and start saying a prayer rolling over and over in my head. And I knew if I stood there much longer, and I felt like this thing wanted to kill me. I felt it was angry that I had seen it.
Emanating from it or something?
Oh, man, it was just jutting off from it. Like, it just wanted to reach out and rip my heart out. And I think if I had doubted my ability to get out of that room for too long, that it would have succeeded, because I thought I was going to pass out. So I just kind of started with the prayer, and I knew, walk very carefully towards the door and walk through this thing. And I just did.
Yeah, wow.
And I don't even know how. And people are like, well, what did it feel like? I'm like, look, I was just looking to move out of that place. I wasn't trying to take in its vibes any further, and made it through that, got to the top of the stairs. And by the time I reached the top of the stairs, I was just collapsed down the stairs. And my friend found me there, and like, what happened? I'm telling her, I'm like, this was crazy. So that was my introduction to shadow people. And I thought that I was done with having witnessed something like that.
Well, now, did the girl never had any really super negative experiences with it, like, trying to slap her around the room or anything, or the father would have said
it would choke her. It would pull her out of the bed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. It was quite abusive. Yeah, and the father felt like it was trying to challenge him, and pretty brutal stuff. But she had also, interestingly enough, survived rolling lightning.
Rolling lightning?
Yeah, those rolling balls of lightning. You ever hear of those?
No, I don't. No, I never heard of those. No.
Yeah, just like a rolling ball of, it looks like static electricity just shooting out.
Yeah.
And her mom saw it coming. It rolled into her house, and she was sitting there playing.
Where do those things occur? I've never even read about that.
I don't know. That's what she called it, rolling ball of lightning. And I guess the power of lightning can hit something dry and kind of furl on. I don't know, and her mother told her to drop the wire hangers she had in her hands, and she was a small kid, and she just dropped it, and the lightning just hit it, just boom, hit the hanger. So, but it's fascinating though. When it comes to the shadow people, I thought that I had finished with dealing with the whatever it was that I had witnessed. I didn't know what to think of it. I didn't know what to call it. I was just kind of in a notion of having survived this, whatever it was that attacked my friend for years. Yeah. But I started having nightmares, and I didn't associate it necessarily because I'd been through a haunting and stuff before. I guess I just associated with, having some more bad luck, and I started having nightmares of shadow spiders, is what I call them.
Shadow spiders?
Oh my gosh, just like waking up from a nightmare of seeing giant spiders that could take up literally the entire ceiling of my bedroom, and then opening my eyes and still seeing it there. And wow. And then having the thing drop from the ceiling, hit my bed, shaking the bed, and with every step moving the blankets. Just crazy. Oh, absolutely crazy. And so these nightmares, I would usually wake up looking for a shoe or something to hit it. Just craziness. But again, I didn't associate it with shadow people or anything like that. I moved back to Milwaukee. I was finishing up school. Yeah. And I'd had a crazy encounter that I had joined a UFO paranormal discussion group. It was more like a UFO alien abduction group, actually.
Oh, and really?
Because I'd seen.
And that was at school or near in Milwaukee?
It was in Milwaukee areas. Believe it or not, a psychotherapist had started the group because, oddly enough, she was running into all these alien abductees that, didn't know why they had PTSD, and she was unraveling and finding it had alien eyes looking back at them. So she started this group, and I caught wind of it, because I'd seen some, UFOs and everything, but I joined this group, and soon after I joined, I had an unmarked black helicopter over my home. And
Really?
I'm like, I had read about these things and knew that they were
Yeah,
essentially
connected with
associated with
connected with
UFO witnesses.
right witnesses. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so it was just crazy to me to, I'm like, oh my gosh, I joined this group, and here I got, I just joined the group because I'd seen UFOs. Everybody else were alien abductees. Just
Wow.
crazy. No one was just in the category of having seen UFOs. And I'm like, okay, great. I joined this group, and the government's checking me out. And I soon moved not too far up the street from where I lived originally after I saw that black helicopter. And I was living alone, lived on the first floor apartment. My dad always warned me, hey, young girls shouldn't be living by themselves. Like, somebody could break in.
Well,
I moved in.
Seems plausible.
It makes sense. I moved into a place where there were bars on the windows, so it was safe. I felt.
Well, of course, the bars were there for a reason. I mean, because of rough neighborhood, maybe. Huh?
It was on the east. No, it was on the east side of Milwaukee, a college side of town. It was nothing.
Oh, I'm not familiar with Milwaukee, really.
Yeah, it's pretty. Right now, it's one of the most upscale sides of town, and it wasn't bad when I lived there. So it was just a safety feature because it was on the first floor. It's just kind of too easy for anybody to slide on in there. But so this one night I woke up because I heard noise, like really loud noise in my place. Like somebody was ruffling and rustling through my stuff. And first thought was like, oh my God, my dad was right. Somebody's broken in. But I'm like, how'd they get in? Thinking, they must have come in through the door. And my bedroom door is wide open. I'm hearing a lot of ruckus going on. And I'm like, holy smokes. The second I put my feet down to run, whoever is in here is going to see me. And I have bars on my windows, so I can't get out the window. I don't have my phone near me.
What a set of circumstances.
Oh my gosh, absolutely terrifying. I don't know if I told you this story before, but
no, never.
Oh, this is just probably one of the wackiest experiences I ever had. So I go to put my feet down on the ground, and I'm like, run like heck to get out of there. And I mean, you're just on a fight for your life, like, so, oh my gosh, I got to just make it to the kitchen and get out the front door. I put my feet down, and I go to run through the living room when all of a sudden I am met with two beings the size of 4-year-olds with their backs to me. And I'm like, what the heck? 4-year-olds have broken into my apartment. I'm like, suddenly some of my fear left me. And I remember walking up to them, and their backs are to me, and they're going through a short bookshelf that I had. And I'm like, I go up between the two of them, and they both stop what they're doing, and they turn and look up right at me. And, these things, they look just like the gray alien beings that people write so often about. And
little dumpy kind of aliens.
Well, yeah, like gray with the big bulbous head, the black almond-shaped eyes, 2 slits for a nostril and a slit for a mouth. And they always say, like, they don't show any expression. These things, they open their mouths to form an O, like, oh crap, she's out. Yeah. And I'm like, it was weird because I thought I was about to die, and then all of a sudden there's 2 little odd creatures. I knew what they were because I joined that group, and I had read books on the topic of alien abductions, and I was like, who are you? What are you doing here? And I grabbed my stuff I grabbed my stuff that was in their hands. I put it down, and I'm like, essentially just like not knowing what the heck and why the heck they're there. I hear some more noise behind me. There's 2 more in my walk-in closet. I really didn't tell you about this, Kevin.
No, never. I'm just, whoa, holy mackerel. Yeah. No, this is totally new territory.
Little did you know. This is,
really.
Yeah. See,
well, what's strange to me, too, is that I'm thinking you're just a little girl, and I'm thinking, God, I mean, I'm older now, but at my height, like say 30, 35, I was literally, without being silly about it, scared of no man. I mean, I chase off. I mean, I had battles with mafia gunsels and everything else, and yeah. So what? But I mean, I was scared of nothing like that. But a little old girl experiencing these things, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I got to really take my hat off to you.
I was terrified. I mean, at the time, it's like I was afraid of the dark to an extent because I knew what was in the dark. I grew up in a haunted house. I didn't appreciate some of the things I'd experienced, and to be met with something solid like this. I mean, gray alien beings. I'm like, and again, all I could think of was to attribute it to the UFO group I had joined. I'm like, I get a black helicopter. Now I have little grays in my apartment. And I wasn't paralyzed like people say. And I don't feel like I got abducted or anything like that. But, to get to the shadow people part, practically the next day, I saw those head and shoulder shaped shadow people in my apartment. I'm like, oh my gosh, those things are back. And
they were going, right? I mean, looking through your stuff, I guess you said.
The gray beings were, but the shadow beings, like the next day, it's like, what are the odds? I just saw gray alien beings for the first time in my life. Next day, my place is bombarded with shadowy creatures, and it was like, how when you see a bird diving, dive bombing or something, and they're so quick. I was seeing something the size of a bird zipping past me all the time, and I'm like, what is going on here? And this is interesting too, Kevin, since you're a nature guy. And this is not quite nature, but whenever a fly would come into my apartment, they would stop flying and they would walk. I called them crawlers because they wouldn't fly anymore.
Well, that's not very normal. I mean, that's abnormal itself. They're always flying around, flitting around, and
so
they might light for a minute, but not for very long. No.
Right. I didn't know how to categorize what the heck was going on. All I knew is I had these black shadowy masses, and they felt very nosy, very observant, and very negative. Just didn't know how to think on what was going on in my life. All of a sudden, I'm like, did I open up a can of worms by going to this group? What the heck?
Well, you wouldn't think so, but I guess. Well, now this would indicate a demonic content as opposed to just some flyby aliens.
Well, that's what I thought. But then I started to really connect it to, there had to be a connection between the aliens and these shadow beings. The timing was too perfect. And I actually had an experience that was, this is, I don't talk about this one so much, but whenever something weird would be coming near me, I would wake right up. It was weird. It was almost like my heart would start beating, and then I would get an adrenaline rush, and I'd wake up to see whatever was in my room. It was almost like I had my own alarm system. And this one time I got that sudden adrenaline rush, and I'm like, great, what's in here? And Kevin, this is so gross. There was a giant spider thing dropping down from the ceiling, like as if on a string with its legs spread out, going towards my face. I opened my eyes. This thing closed its legs and started to retract, and it formed a gray alien's face as it retracted. And I jumped up, and I'm like, I see you, I see you, I see you. And I'm like, oh, you son of a, I'm so dead. I'm like, I saw you. I know now that you guys, there was some connection, but how do you connect the dots? It was just such a crazy experience.
I know, that's a weird circumstances. I mean, I was going to assign it to demonism as opposed to some flyby alien type things. Now it's, I don't know what to categorize it as.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I was just trying to get through school, and so that apartment, I had so many things going on in there. It was it was hard to concentrate. Not too long after.
So.
Yeah, it was like, the degree I have, and I'm an occupational therapist now, and it's like for me, it was like I was getting ready to become a doctor. I didn't feel like it would be much more of a stretch to go further to school if I wanted to. I'm like, what more can they cram in my freaking head? I was so done. But anyways, soon after that, I moved across the hall in the same building. I got a roommate. I got a bigger apartment. And I thought it would be cool that I'd get this new roommate who, I'm a cartoonist as well. And I welcome people to check out my comic called The Outlanders. If you go to theoutlanderscomic.com, essentially a Bigfoot gets alien neighbors with human homesteaders in the opposite hill. So it's kind of fun. But she was somebody who was also a cartoonist, and I'm like,
oh, really?
cool.
What are the chances of that? That's pretty bizarre.
She had won the presidential award 4 times, full tuition scholarship. She was phenomenal. And I thought, how neat. So we became roommates, and she was Pentecostal, very religious, very strict. Yeah. And I did warn her that I had some weird stuff going on. Even though I moved to a new apartment, it just bounced next door to me. I mean, all this weird stuff still was going on. And she told me, I have God on my side. Your demons won't bother me. And I'm like, okay. Well, it turned out the things I was able to see, which were like transparent looking like aliens sometimes, where I could just see the edge of stuff, she was able to see them so clear. I caught her. Clearly? Yes. Oh my gosh. The very first time she had her back to me, and she was sketching madly, looking at the corner of the wall. And I could see this like outline of a like, it looked like an alien something that was standing there, but I couldn't see any details. She turns around and I drew what I saw, and she pulls out her drawing. Holy smokes. Yeah. So much detail, ridiculous. And she's like, what is this? I'm like,
I guess so. Yeah.
My gosh. I'm like, you could see better than I can. So, but because she just kept calling them demons, she's like, I can't categorize it as anything else unless I see a UFO. But she was drawing aliens. And then she started seeing the shadow beings around as well. And she just, it started a whole new chapter for myself. And she's the one.
So what are you saying? In essence, these are like interdimensional beings as opposed to being straight up demons? Is that kind of your way of categorizing them?
I think they're one and the same. I think that these shadow beings are what was written of in the Bible as being something that could change shape. I mean, shadow spiders, shadow cats, shadow people, shadow streaks, clouds, spiders. They could change it to anything, and their presence and their feel is so negative. And over the years, as I've received so many emails, thousands, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands. I was on some show that asked me, how many shadow people reports have you investigated? I said thousands. They edited it and said dozens and dozens. I'm like, the heck I said that. I have thousands.
Oh, really? They changed your wording on their own, eh?
Yeah. They asked me the question, and then they put, Miss Hollis says dozens and dozens. No, I did not. So, editing liberty going on there. But yeah, so just madness. But the capacity of people who have witnessed these things are forever changing, and a lot of the people said, when they felt these things around, they would leave after they gave up. Like, they were so terrified, they just gave up and felt they were going to die, and the shadow people would leave after that. Like, it was an interesting thing. They fed off from the fear. Yeah, fed off the fear. So,
I've heard of that. I've heard of it alluded to somewhere before. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, just the craziest thing. And this roommate of mine, who I'll just call Samantha, she is the one who experienced the Hat Man, which is something we'll go into at the last segment. And I thought it was another form that shadow people came in, but I was really wrong. I placed a lot of different images on my website of the forms that shadow people could take, and I called him the Hat Man Shadow. Well,
that's like a subdivision of.
Yeah, he is not a shadow being. Yes, he could look somewhat shadowy at times, but he is quite solid. and
Oh, yeah.
quite very much in control and very consistent in what he does and what he says. He speaks. Shadow people may growl, they'll pin you down, choke you, and whatnot, and try to scare the crap out of you. But Hat Man takes it to a whole new level. And
would he be genuinely demonic, I guess, or?
Oh, I believe he's in control of the demons. I believe he is the demon of all demons, unfortunately.
Oh, satanic kind of a thing, yeah.
Oh,
wow.
And when he introduces
Well, you've
himself,
got a lovely little experience there in the Midwest. I thought that stuff was supposed to be wholesome up that way.
No, yeah.
I guess not.
Right
Well, listen, we're coming to our last break, and we'll be right back.
All right, Kevin, we're back in 3, 2, 1.
Well, it's great to be back with Heidi, and boy, I tell you what, like I said earlier, big macho guy, and this little girl's doing stuff that would scare me. I'm there putting up with stuff that would scare me. It's really wild. But Heidi, I've got to take my hat off to you. Dealt with a lot of monsters and made it through, I guess.
You know what? I didn't even tell you when I was 8 years old is when I was first left to take on the haunting by my lovely siblings. I mean, it was.
Oh, really?
I think that's what it's kind of prepared me for all this stuff. I'll tell you the story really quick, but the haunting in our house started the first Christmas after my mother's passing, and my soon-to-be stepmother and my dad went to go. It was Christmas freaking morning, and my soon-to-be stepmom and my dad went to go wish others Merry Christmas, and me and my siblings had just finished tearing through all of our gifts and whatnot, and really digging it, and my stepmother had just moved in Oregon, and this thing started playing.
Oh, no.
It's pounding away, and me and my sisters, we love watching old Western movies and watching the automatic pianos play, and we go up to it, we're like, that is so cool. And I go to my future stepbrother, we're like, how does it do that? It's just like in the movies. And he's a little freckled redhead, and he's pale as a ghost. He goes, it doesn't. we just knew. Oh, no. And we ran and locked ourselves in the bathroom. And long story short, I had a older sister who was the bullying type, and she's like, oh, the bathroom's too crowded. Somebody has to get out. And she shoved me out. And
really?
I was like, I couldn't take it. I could not take this thing pounding away the way it was in front of me. So I got the keys to it because it had a cover, and went up and pulled the cover over it and locked it. I mean, those keys were pounding away right in front of my face, and I locked it up.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And when I did, it stopped.
Good thing.
But it didn't end there, but it was just a crazy thing. But to get to the Hat Man, this guy, okay, because I know we don't have that much time, but
we still got quite a bit. Yeah.
Well, the Hat Man is a book in itself. I wrote the book called The Hat Man: The True Story to Evil Encounters, and the Shadow People book is called The Secret War, a true story about shadow people in a real alien war, essentially. And the Hat Man was just a whole element that I just didn't understand. So this one night, I woke up to my college roommate, Samantha, screaming at the top of her lungs. And I was certain in this apartment, she had a door in her bedroom that opened to the porch. And she's screaming at the top of her lungs. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, somebody's killing her. I run full force. I go in there, and only to find her absolutely petrified and cowered in a corner, shaking and pointing her finger, saying, the man. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, somebody broke out. I'm checking the windows and checking the door. I'm like, where'd he go? And with her first words, she's like, no, he disappeared when you opened the door. And I'm just like, what? And she went on to describe this man with a gaucho hat, trench coat, three-piece suit, a chained watch on his hip.
Pretty dapper.
Oh yeah, and goatee and very pale. And she's like, he was so real, he would not leave. He was just standing there looking at me, and she was just, oh, it gives me chills because I just remember the horror of it. And I'm like, wow, this must be another form that shadow people take. So I put Hatman Shadow on my website, and almost immediately, now this is a freaky one too. You'll dig this story. So I had just put all these images on my website of the shadow people and the Hatman Shadow, and one of my sisters, I have 6 of them. She came over, my younger one.
6 sisters? You have 6 sisters?
6 sisters. And,
good Lord,
yeah, so myself and my younger sister were the youngest of all of them, and she comes over unannounced, and she's a bit shaken up, but I'm like too excited to show her my new website, and she's like, Heidi, I gotta talk to you about something. I'm like, oh, but I gotta show you my new site. She's like, Heidi, something happened, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, okay, so here's my new site, and I pull it up, and she screams and points, that's him, and I'm like, whoa, what? And she's pointing at the Hatman. And I said, what are you talking about? She's like, Heidi, I went downstairs to get my laundry, and this thing, huge, just rose up from behind her dryer. She said, I don't think I touched a step on the way up. She knocked her daughter over in the process, ran outside screaming, and her daughter ran out behind her. She's like, I didn't know what I had seen. And then soon after that, I don't know if it was the next day or something, she's driving and she looks in her rearview mirror, and he's just as solid as anyone with red glowing eyes. She's like, I just pulled over and jumped out of the car.
She was in the back seat of the car, I guess, or something?
Back seat, literally sitting there with the glowing red eyes. And he was so responsive. It was as soon as I put his image up on my site, and he goes after the sister I'm closest to. I'm like, what the heck? How purposeful, how unbelievable. And almost immediately, the emails that I received for shadow people and the Hatman, when I put the Hatman up there, they were so different from shadow people reports. It was, he came to me for years. He spoke to me. He changes his hat. Sometimes he takes his hat off. I'm like, this is not a shadow person. Shadow people take on different forms. They're whispering.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
They can have glowing red eyes, but Hatman, he wanted to be recognized. He did not change. He wanted people to see who he was, and he'd even introduce himself as a Scratch, which is an old Norse term for the devil.
I remember that from somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, so his threats, his going into people's nightmares, his beatings, his scratchings, his bitings, his raping people is phenomenal and through the roof. And it's not just a possibility that you'll see this guy at some point in your life. It's a threat. He is just so awful. And honestly, I think the worst of it is when I hear from people who were kids who experienced him, who, I was 3 years old. He used to terrorize me, and all the way through adulthood. And it's like, and some people have like relationships with him that they feel protected, even though they know he's evil. But he makes sure that they're under his wing. And I had one guy who said he terrified me and everything, but my dad was abusive, and one time he knocked the crap out of him. I'm like, okay. So it's like, how do you I've gotten emails from all over the world, from the Philippines to Serbia, about Hatman.
Serbia, I'll be darned.
Oh my gosh, it's so ridiculous.
It's a planet-wide experience, basically.
for centuries. And I just that's why I felt it was so important to get people to get right with their faith, because the one name that he responds to is Jesus. He leaves. Shadow people leave. Aliens that abduct leave with the name of Jesus. Now, if they're just aliens,
the
why does
aliens
that
do as well?
bother them?
The aliens do as well.
Yeah, they do.
I didn't know that.
They do. Yeah. So it's like, so what are we talking about here? Why does this work? And on my show, The Outlander, also on Inception Radio, I had Kathleen Martin on, and we spoke because I knew that alien abductions they're not being reported as they once were, and she's in charge of MUFON's alien abduction.
She is?
Reports.
I never heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill.
I remember that part of it. I didn't know what her active function was now, but
yeah.
So people are not reporting these issues like they used to. Is that it? Or?
They're not reporting the alien abductions, and she, in fact, she and I both spoke on how it's quite demonic what's going on out there. And I'm like, that's something I wrote about in my book, The Secret War, the very first book. I wrote it in '97, and it's just forever been a problem with these evil entities disguised as saying, they're just little creatures and UFOs. No, they're looking to the soul of you. And people have had near-death experiences, and at the end of their tunnel are aliens. So they're messing with things and messing with the soul.
Well, I guess maybe the Pentecostal types that we're talking about, the UFO people being demonic content, or demonic origin, maybe that is true then.
They were onto something, that's for sure. I have to say, it's like, the ones that abduct and harm people, those are the demonic ones. The ones that you hear about the most, reptilians and greys, praying mantis, those are demonic. Yeah. The ones that you don't hear about are not, because they're not grabbing people against their will. They'll talk to you about using Jesus' name to combat these things, and how there's a war going on between positive beings and these negative ones. And that's what I based that first book, The Secret War, on. And I'm so angry and so leery in regards to the topic of Hat Man, because my emails used to be 100% aliens. Then it became 100% shadow people. I put up the Hat Man's image. It's like 95% now Hat Man going on out there. And he's so abrupt.
Are you still bedeviled by this creature? Or?
I don't have any issues with him, but I'll tell you this just before I put the book out called The Hat Man.
Yeah.
He was, once again, very responsive. He showed up at my job. It's just 10, 15 minutes after talking about him. I practice as an occupational therapist, and I used to go to various facilities, and there'd be people whispering, "Oh, this is the lady that writes those books." And they're like, "So Heidi, what do you write about?" And I mentioned briefly, and 15 minutes later, one of the therapists had a patient down in the therapy gym, and a physical therapist walking a patient in the parallel bars, and that patient started saying, "Who is the man in the black suit talking to me in another language?" And he's pointing at the mirror he's walking in front of. The therapist screams and comes and get me, and she's like, look at what he's saying. And I'm like, and the guy's like, "Don't act like I'm crazy and you don't see what I'm talking about." It's like, "Who is that man?" And I'm like, "Sir, look behind you. Do you see him?" And he's like, "No, I don't." He's like, "But now he's behind you." And I'm like, "Oh, great." And then I bent down and I go, "Sir, is he wearing a hat?" And he said, "I knew you could see him." Yes, of course he's got a hat on. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like he was that responsive. That's the Hat Man. That's how evil and so aware that he is, and why people have to get right with their faith, and figuring it out before something like that comes along, so you'll at least be prepared, because there's just no telling when and where he'll show up. And I've had mass sightings of him as far as families spotting him in their kitchen and stuff. Oh yeah, just horrible stuff. So I just tell people to take heed and bless their homes. There is a way to get out from under aliens, shadow people, and Hat Man. Bless your home, figure your faith out, and don't have any doubts in that. Having doubts gives them a way in, and
right.
It's just not healthy. So I don't know. It's there's so much that goes behind the paranormal, and it's to some people, they like to entertain the thought. They like to go and what do you think about that with ghost hunters, Kevin? Was that something you'd ever see yourself doing?
No, I wouldn't. I don't like chasing down the negative, and I could never see mucking about trying to do it. No.
Yeah.
And I mean, the experience I had with that negative form of paranormal was actually fairly innocent on my part. I was just doing the Kuji-Kuri exercises. I wasn't trying to communicate with anything evil. It was just what happened. But I guess the old saying about be careful what you fool with, because it can really hurt you if you don't know what you're doing. And just like the old Ouija board issue from years ago, I guess I don't even know. Do they still make Ouija boards? I've got outfit that made them.
Yes, they do.
They do still
sell them as a game.
That.
Yep.
Wow. Well, I mean, because even George Norrie on his shows mentioned to leave it alone, because actually the old Exorcist movie was based upon somebody in St. Louis mucking about with a Ouija board, and that that's how all that came about.
Right. That's
so
terrible.
You could play with stuff that you don't need to be playing with, for sure. Even when it comes to
curiosity killed the cat, they say.
Well, yes, it really did, and I don't know. Like I say, Norrie on his shows mentioned many times, just leave that stuff alone. Don't do that, and it's certainly true. And in Catholicism, of course, you're not supposed to really mess with anything of that nature either. And
I wouldn't. I recommend not doing it. I had as a teenager and a little bit as an adult, but it's just so dark, and you don't know what you'll get when you mess with something like that. And they have angel boards too, Kevin. Angel boards, like that's gonna bless whatever comes through and not be evil.
Yeah.
But it's like a Ouija board. But
I don't know about that. That sounds like it's. I mean, the whole idea, like they say, the Catholic Church itself doesn't recommend any dabbling in occultism for that reason. I mean, chasing the ghost down and talk to them or anything like that. Don't do that. And and that's why, but for the same reason, and because you don't know what you're fooling with, and that is wild. But I hope that's a lesson to people, because I sure wouldn't want to be bedeviled with a bunch of hanging in the corner hat guys or anything else.
Yeah.
But I have actually experienced an exorcism of my own some 30 years ago.
That's right. Did you levitate?
No, but I mean, I could do some things that were very scary.
Yeah.
And I used to, believe it or not, it wasn't a very long period before I had an exorcism, and I was already a sturdy old buzzard, but I would go to biker bars to pick fights. And I would do things that were, a sturdy guy or not, I'd do stuff that was way out of line. Like some guy was, huffing and puffing around, and I would he's like 6'4", 6'5", and I just grabbed his arm. And I said, "Oh, you must be real strong," in a sarcastic way. And I grabbed his bicep so hard he just fell to his knees in pain, stuff like out of a movie. If you saw the Terminator, the old Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator movie.
Yeah.
Remember where he grabbed a guy under the neck and picked him up off the ground with one hand?
Right.
I did that. And it was no more effort for me, Heidi, than picking up a cup of coffee.
That's really scary.
I will say this, not that I want it to ever happen again, but when you are possessed, it is kind of amusing. I mean, but there's a certain arrogance that comes out of you. Like, that's why I said that to that guy, like, "Oh, you must be real strong." And I actually cleared the biker bar out.
I bet.
They're like, "Holy mackerel, I'm out of here." And it was just stuff like that. But like I say, it went away, and that was fine. But it wasn't anything I'd ever want to ever muck about again, and I certainly would never fool with a Ouija board. That would be the last thing on earth I would do. But it is odd. It is a strange world. But in fairness, though, in retrospect, you know, I've been in church ever since, and I'm certainly not bedeviled with any creatures or anything like that, and I don't plan on it. So,
right.
And I do think if you stay in prayer and lead a good spiritual life, I think you'll be all right and protected from that kind of ruckus. But,
I've had people who write me and that are like, we're Christians, we don't understand what's going on, and I'm like, well, it's not always that it's attracted to you because you're rotten, but much like a bug to a light, he doesn't
well,
like
now there
that
is
you're
some
so
of
bright
that.
and that you're influencing others to be so light, and bright and positive. So,
well, now there is something that, because are you familiar with Padre Pio?
yes.
Petrosina? Well, see, he was actually bedeviled with some demons every now and again. It wouldn't last, but I mean, they pestered him every now and then.
Yeah.
But of course, it wasn't allowed to go on. But I mean, yes, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, even the devil tempted Jesus, and it's like, I tell people, take it as a compliment, because it lets you know that you're doing something right, and there's something really that they want to possess and obsess over, because
right.
it's something that can really help society. And sometimes it's because the people can see them, that they want to poke their eyes out, essentially, and shut them up, because they could warn others to their presence. And if you could see your enemy, you could prepare for them. And they don't like that so much. Yeah. So,
well, it also underscores their overall game plan. It also underscores, the more visible and understood they are, then more people are alerted, and hopefully the more that would turn back to Christ and religion and so forth. And they don't necessarily want someone like you running off at your yak about it. I guess.
Yeah.
And alerting people, basically. But I don't know, Heidi. It is. I will say this: it is a strange world. I know there's plenty of good in it too, but what was that old Ripley's "Believe It or Not, Life is Stranger Than It Seems" or something old saying like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it is, boy, it really is.
It's a crazy world, but it's so in our faces lately of climate change, negative things going on, and the paranormal anomalies going on, and Jesus showing up in the Middle East. Just to so many people who are
that is an issue now. That really is.
Of the Muslim faith, who are suddenly seeing Jesus night after night, not just one night, but he keeps coming to them until they look into who he is. And there's many converts all of a sudden. And it's like, hold on, Hatman's showing up, Jesus is showing up. There's so many changes going on. The vibrations of the planet are changing, for crying out loud. The patterns of the planet, as far as the weather's changing. So what is going on here? So people need to really take and pay attention. And I wanted to also let people know that if they're experiencing anything out of the ordinary, from Jesus encounters to shadow people, aliens, Hatman, to go to my main website, which is HeidiHollis.com. And again, write me. My email is dasoutlander@gmail.com. It's on the website. And to also, everybody could use a laugh. I'm the comic strip. I'm like, it's a paranormal comic. I don't think anything is out there like it. So the outlanderscomic.com. And, just trying to get people to connect, vent, laugh, enjoy this life instead of taking themselves so darn serious all the time, and to not let the dark side win by letting them go silent on what it is they're experiencing.
Well, that is true, Heidi, and that's the overall of it, because the good is stronger than the demonic, and you have to remember that. And I don't know. It's just, it is a strange one, though. It really is. And I urge everybody also to listen to our show. It's on Inception Radio Network at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we have every Tuesday, and we have a diverse little bunch of guests coming up.
Yeah, well, we have fun with it. And I've got another on Friday, Inception Radio at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So we keep Inception Radio busy, that's for sure. We have fun with it, don't we, Kevin?
We do. And we try to keep it, varied. It's not the same old stuff all the time. We try to.
Right.
Now, of course, unlike this network, we do have a lot of political shows because, golly, the political is about as bizarre as the paranormal these days. I mean, I'd never believed that, and I don't know it, but we do keep the pot stirring, and I think we do a pretty good job of it. I really do. Right. But boy, Heidi, you've really opened my eyes to a lot of things tonight. I mean, poor little old girl experiencing all these metaphysical creatures, and me kicking around a bunch of bikers is kind of pretty mild stuff compared to that. I mean,
but there's a bright side to everything. You got exercise. I had Jesus encounters. Yeah. I mean, that was the highlight of all of my encounters. Jesus encounters. Nothing beats that. And that book, Jesus is No Joke.
Well, yes.
I mean, people check it out, and there's always a light side. The light wins.
Well, it is, and the God side wins. That's true, and that's the rest of it. But it is odd. But I mean, people don't realize. I think that's the thing, is people don't realize the depth of all the things we're exposed to, and frankly, in world events, like you're saying, there are demons. They're very active, and there's been stuff there have been things I don't even bring up in the news pieces, because they're so exotic, so evil, that, Heidi, I don't want to turn the listeners off. I mean, maybe I should, but I mean, I get access to a lot of different stories from a lot of different feeds. And there's stuff that would frankly upset people's sensibilities if I let them know about all these different things.
I believe it.
So I stay away from them, just trying to deal with more, light issues and keep them entertained. I'm not interested in scare them into the earth. But anyway. Heidi, I guess we're coming to the end of this show. I guess it was a good one. It certainly was different. And I guess we better bid them a good night here.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me come on and vent a little bit with you, Kevin.
Okay. Well, it's good to be a host on your show again. And Epic, Ken Cherry, I wish you a good night. Good night.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Please join us again next Monday evening for Extraordinary Phenomena Investigations Council's Epic Voyages. I'm Roger Peacock for Epic. Until next time.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.